welcome. This is Kevin, also known as AWOL, and today this is all about making the ornament number 8, which it actually not that bad. I did need help in the end with putting it together, and I got my wife to do it, so it's going to look like there's a whole bunch of hands coming at you, but overall not so bad. As far as what you need to do this, I needed 2 skeins for each one of these, right? I cut the skeins into 1/6, right? So that way there's like 6 strands coming through. And so you need 4 skeins for each one of the sides. So 12 skeins overall in order to do it. So I just used 2 colors. I thought that'd be kind of fun. Cutting it into 6 is kind of short. I didn't leave a lot of space from where I tied the loose knot, right? So I ended up having like longer strings. Turns out, so those were the new loose knots that it just showed right there. Turns out I didn't have to leave it that short. In fact, leaving it a bit longer might have made it a bit easier to knot this thing up at the end. But I gave myself a pretty good pattern that was not difficult. There was, it's like an arrowhead basically, right? So, but there's not a lot of instances of that. And then there's just a great big diamond in the center, which looks cute enough. I mean, you know, obviously you can do any pattern. You can, you know, kind of judge the size. It's just like a double wide bracelet essentially. And that helped to give a little bit of a curvature where the 2 V's are like the V in the middle kind of brings in when you knot those strings together, that kind of gives it some of that curvature on each one of the different segments. And then the outer bit gets tied to the next one over. And yeah, so you have this little bracelet thing that I'm making here. I have to make 3 of those to make this work. I suppose you could do 4, right? But yeah, that's just, I think at that point it's just because the angle of the diamond, you know, the way it comes in, I think it's going to be kind of a little bit crowded, a little bit more, you know. 3 worked out really good, and it kind of gives it like an egg shape, right? So that's kind of cool. But yeah, if you wanted to give it an experiment, try it with 4 of these things coming down, you could. It's going to get a little crowded at the top, and I would leave out some of the strings that I used for the tassel. So we'll kind of get to that a little bit later on, because you'll see me putting it together. Yeah, the pattern doesn't matter. Like I said, I just used a 2 color thing because it was convenient. I guess the colors were kind of picked out earlier on because I knew that like I would need several skeins in order to do this. So some of this was kind of planned in advance. In fact, I don't think when I pulled the string for it that I had planned on cutting it as short as 1/6. Also, I think that my original plan was not to do it single stranded, but to double strand it. So instead of 12 skeins, it would have used 24, which when looking at this and getting ready to do it, I realized that there was like no need to make it thick. These are all just prototypes anyways. The whole point of these ornaments is just to show that we can do something different if we just put our minds to it and try different things. And if you like one of them, take the elements that you like and change it up a bit. Like maybe you come up with a different pattern, different colors, you know, but you have the overall basics for the shape. Maybe you make it much larger. Maybe this size ornament is a lot smaller than what you would like. So instead of this being like 24 strings, maybe you go 36, you know, or maybe you double the floss, make it thicker, so then it comes out bigger. You could also go make the pattern longer, which would, you know, lengthen out the sides, give you like more room to kind of curve it around a bit. You know, so these are ideas I'm trying to, you know, pass along to you guys that, you know, yes, I created something cool. Yes, you could follow the instructions to the letter, but that's not necessarily the best thing that could come of all this. The best thing is that I inspire you to try something and you make something amazing. So hopefully that comes through. Hopefully you guys get the gist. As you can see here now, I'm already going into the diamond part of this pattern, right? So it just has like 3 little of the arrowheads and then goes straight into this great big diamond and then comes out the other side. And it doesn't end like right at one of the arrowheads. It kind of splits one, which sort of made it a little bit more of me having to like really look at the pattern as I was coming to the end of it, which that's okay. It's just, you know, yeah, I've never really felt like I had to like watch a pattern for an arrowhead quite as closely as I did with this. Because I just didn't want to make a mistake. I didn't want it to be kind of ruined or anything. And like I said, it's single stranded, so it's thinner, it's kind of cutesy. And that we basically, when we tied it up, we tied all the outer ones together and left the inner ones out, and then tied them and kind of did the thing with the bracelet, like how you take the second one over top of the first, and then the third goes over top of the first and second, the fourth goes over the top of all those, and so on. We did that, so there is, let's see, 6, 12, like 18 strings, I think. And then Mandy was really nice and did the kumis out of those strands. So yeah, I think I don't know, there was a lot of string. It might be 36 strings. And then it was 18 for either side. That makes sense. I think that's it. 18 of each color. Yeah. Anyways, so it makes for some really thick kumis. My wife was saying that we could have actually have put some of those knots on the inside and had it come out smaller, and it might have looked a little nicer, but I don't know. I liked how it came out. I think it's kind of cool. And the whole color picking, it's supposed to be silver and gold, which is obviously silver is more or less a gray, and the gold is more or less kind of a off yellow, sort of yellow heading into the orange, or yeah, kind of like that. So yeah, and you can see I did my best to segment, not this thing, what I could, and it didn't. These segments surprisingly didn't take me that long. Some of these other ornaments took many days to put together. This one was put together all in about 2 days. So that includes a lot of the planning, the cutting the strings, just everything from beginning to end. So it did actually go by pretty quickly. So as far as intensity level, like how difficult, not so bad. But like I was saying, later on, you're going to see I did need help holding it. Like I held the things in place while Mandy joined the knots to get things together. And yeah, I might have been able to have used clips in order to make that happen. But it would have been difficult. It would have been very difficult. And yeah, it was just easier that having the two of us work together like we did. Yeah, it would be hard pressed. I'm picturing like some of the points where it came together. You'll see, it's just easier if you have somebody that can help you. So yeah, I guess that's what really makes it a friendship ornament. You need a friend to help, and it helped that it was my wife, because my arms came around her to hold two pieces together, and then she was, in front of me working it out. I wouldn't have been able to see much of what I was doing if not for the fact that I have a camera pointed right at it and I could see it on the screen. So yeah, that was kind of funny. Yeah, not a terrible, you know, bit of work here. Like, if you do it this pattern, easy. Also, because it's in every other color, you don't have to do zigzag knots. You can just do the knots to the left and knots to the right, and just be selective of which strings you're picking up. And yeah, so a beginner could obviously do this pattern, no problem. It's the later stuff that comes into a problem. And you don't have to do a kumi braid to the top of it. You could just do a regular standard braid, or tie it all off and just leave a couple strands to hang it up from. Doesn't matter. Sometimes I just go a little extra because I can, because we have the stuff to do it. But I don't want to give the impression like that's the only way that it can be done, because sometimes that's a barrier to beginners trying out these things. And I don't want there to be that kind of a problem for you guys. I don't think that there's ever only one solution to be able to make something. And I know that some creators out there sort of talk in a way like this is how it's done. And I just want to remind you that, there's the way that you do it can be the way that you do it. And don't let people say that that's wrong, because, if your work stands out as unique, people will appreciate that. And I certainly do. I like the fact that my bracelets show that it was made by a person and not a machine. Like, I know that some people are meticulous and that every knot is perfect, and maybe sometimes mine aren't quite as much that way, but to me it shows that there was a person behind it, and that I think that's an important thing as well. So there you go. Almost to the end of this part of it. So this is the silver one, then there's the gold that gets kind of broken up. And yeah, mind you, this little bracelet segment, I have to make 3 of these. This recording, I think, might have actually been the 3rd one. No particular reason. I was just kind of busy and watching other things at the time when I made the other ones, and then realized like I really need to actually get this thing, recorded, so that way I have something to show for it. But yeah, and you'll see it kind of broke off the segmenting just to be able to get this. The middle thing is so weird. It just breaks halfway through the arrowhead. In retrospect, I think I would have liked it to just end on that gold one, because here it ends on that silver piece right there like that. Yeah, if I had it to do again differently, I would just added like 1 more row. But that's, hindsight. Yeah, it's not that big a deal. And see, now all these kind of come out, and then it just comes in kind of straight. Oh, I might use some kind of a glue to take the loose ends, because like we cut off the strings, tied a big knot, and like there's like loose bits inside of here. I might just use a simple glue just to kind of smooth it out, make it a little bit, less conspicuous. But overall, it's put together strong enough that I could put this thing through a washing machine, like wash it with my clothes or whatever. And yeah, it'll get squished and knocked around a bit, but then you just can take it and just kind of give it the shape. And yeah, it should be fine. So, and since bracelets last a really, really long time, even when you wear them every day, Yeah, these ornaments are probably going to last a really, really long time because, you know, only pull them out during the whole holiday season. Um, Not really sure. Things are kind of weird around here for the holidays and stuff because my father-in-law has Alzheimer's, and it's kind of hard to change around things in the house because he's also blind. Um, so he kind of is used to like where the table is, where things are. So I'm not sure if we'll be doing much decorating at least this year, or you know, the next couple of years at least. But I'll still have them. I'll be able to put them up, and that'll be cool. There's the little loose nuts like I was talking about. Um, I just left myself enough string to be able to make sure I could tie the bits together. And then here's me. I flipped it over so that way when I bring these things in, the knots would be on the back side. And just tying up the ones that are in the middle of that like V shape. And I did that to all three of the pieces I made. Just a square knot, nothing fancy, nothing crazy. And because the both sides match, it was just yellow to yellow, gray to gray. Pretty easy. And then I grouped it all together in one big knot. I think they call that an overhand knot. But you can see it kind of gives it that curved shape to it. So here I'm gonna twist them a bit, just makes it easier, and then the overhand knot. And there you go. See, it's got that little curve to it. And then here's us putting it together. So she had to sort out the strings, bring them together, and tie them up. So this is the first two pieces, and obviously all three go together. And yeah, just a lot of little square knots. It's this part. It's I don't know. I was gonna say this part's a little bit more tedious, but it's it's still the whole just tying knots, joining things, doing stuff. It's all part of the creativity, right? Yeah. And then grouping all these together into a knot. So yeah, there's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 big knots like this, these overhand knots. And then my wife did the overhand knot and went through and pulled each strand to make sure that it was in good and tight. And then we cut those bits off. Well, I think we waited. Yeah. So here's the third one coming in. And you got to kind of be careful while you're doing this so that you make sure that it's the two pieces are joined close to each other. So that way the knots really kind of make it look nicer. That's part of the trick to that. But as you can see, it's really not that difficult for this. And then you'll see when we flip it around to do the other side, we had to take all the strings that weren't going to be used and kind of bring them out one side so I could flip it inside out. So the gaps on the sides here are big enough that it actually makes it really easy to turn it inside out. And that's how we got the strings to come through in the middle part on the other side. I don't recall if I get much of that. See, there's the cutting off the ends, spinning it around, and then these two sides. So yeah, it is, like I said, a lot more helpful to have somebody to hold it in place while the other person ties them up. You could kind of have done clips. It would have been really hard to get on camera though. But yeah, you could find maybe some kind of smaller something and used, some big clips or whatever to hold it in place. But this was way far easier. Yep, and grouping all these together, tying it into a knot. And then, like I said, my wife goes through and she just pulls each strand, makes sure that that overhand knot is good and tight. We want these things to last. We want these to not come undone. And that is a definite way of helping to make sure that happens. And those are my crazy sharp scissors. So here you can see doing the first one together, just kind of holding the two pieces really flat, keep them, you know, that edge there. And that the strings in the middle are just sort of laid out off to the side at this point. It's not until a little bit later on that I have to like group them together and get them out the side that they're going to go to. Oh, and the whole thing is turned inside out at this point. So the nice sides are facing each other. Just makes it so that way when you turn it back the right way around, you got the side that you want. Just little things to watch out for. I'm trying to make it easier for you guys. So now you see, yeah. So now I've taken all the strings from the middle and I've got them kind of running off to the side there. And now I'm bringing in the other bit. And you see, it's only 6 knots for each one of these segments that joins it, right? 12 strands, 6 knots. Doesn't take that long to do. Obviously, it was harder for me to get it centered in the frame because, you know, I'm kind of just trying to hold the stuff, really. But yeah, 6 little knots and then 1 big knot to join, make sure that these don't come undone. Because once, like, the little square knot really shouldn't come undone, but just adding a little bit of extra assurance, you know. Like I said, I want to be able to run these things through washing machines and have them around for a really long time. So that's where the overhand knot comes into play. Okay. Snip it off, get all that extra string out of the way. And then here comes the last little grouping. At some point I realized there it is. Get centered a little bit more. So now you can see like it's joined, but there's a big hole in the middle. And that big hole is because they aren't kind of grouped together. They're not making that curve like what I did on the other side. But that curve still comes into play when I start tying the knots on the other side, on the top side of it. And those are what give me all the strings to be able to make my loop. Again, probably could have limited it to like only having like 3 from each side or 2 from each side would have been plenty to have made my loop with. But that's, again, it's kind of more or less hindsight. Yeah, so now it's turned the right way around, and these are the knots that are going into what will become the tassel part. So, but hopefully this is all making sense to you. If you have questions, let me know. I will try to help you guys. Yeah, so we basically mushed it, like kind of pinched it in so that way those sides would become really close, and that's how we got that same curvature on the top part. And then, like I said, it's the going over each one and drawing all the strings into the middle, which I don't think I caught on film. But that's how I got them all kind of bunched up into the middle and made the top parts look nice. So, but that's just the same stuff that we do on the regular bracelets. So if you're not sure about that, let me know. I will make a specific tutorial for that, I guess. It's kind of the same way I start my bracelets in reverse, but yeah. But you can see, just pinching it together. Again, that could have been a clip to hold it, per se. But yeah, just joining all of the sides and just square knots. And this one doesn't get the big knot because, again, this is going to be the strings that are used for the tassel. So Okay, so here's the actual finished thing. And like I said, you can kind of see at the top where I brought it in to make the loop. And you can see why I was talking about maybe putting a little bit of glue to the little bits down there. The top doesn't seem so noticeable, but the bottom is. So I could just use a little, even if I just use like the Elmer's school glue would be fine, just to kind of hold the loose ends in. That'd be nice. But there's the overall thing. Hopefully you guys had a good time and enjoyed watching this. If you make one, let me know. Come join our Discord. Leave a photo. I would love to see it. I would think it'd be kind of neat. You know, maybe do some different colors, different patterns, maybe a little bit bigger, maybe a little smaller. Don't go too small or you'll have trouble turning it inside out. That would be my suggestion to you. But other than that, I really look forward to seeing what you guys make. So thank you guys. And as always, don't get your strings in a bunch.